In 1945, the most powerful weapon ever created was dropped on a city. The world was told it was American, but a German documentary claims otherwise. What if the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not built in Los Alamos, but in the underground tunnels of Thuringia? This is not fiction. A German studio released a documentary series making exactly this claim, and the evidence they present is disturbingly convincing. The studio is called Indigena. Their central figure is Olaf Harbold, a chemical engineer from the former East Germany, who presents himself as a historian of the Thuringia region. Alongside him is author Thomas Mainer, whose book title says it all. They did have it after all. Together, they make a bold case across multiple films. Their claim is extraordinary. Not only did Germany build the atomic bomb first, but the three American nuclear explosions of 1945 used German-made warheads. Trinity, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. According to them, all three were German engineering captured by advancing American forces in Thuringia. But here is where it gets strange. They even mention a fourth bomb, one that did not detonate, was recovered by the Japanese and allegedly handed to the Soviets. Even the filmmakers admit this last claim has no direct or even indirect evidence. It was stated almost as an afterthought, but the rest is where it gets interesting. They present an Italian journalist who claims he witnessed a German nuclear test in 1944. He was allegedly there on orders from Mussolini himself. They show locations of alleged underground factories near Erfurt, tens of thousands of workers, secret plutonium production beneath the hills of central Germany. Using ground-penetrating radar, they claim to have found an underground chamber containing a device that matched the profile of American bombs from 1945. They reported it to authorities. The military arrived, cordoned off the area, and spent days working inside. When the filmmakers returned, everything was gone. The chamber was destroyed. The device was removed. To this day, the area remains a military zone, convenient or proof of a cover-up. A Czech researcher who analyzed the series admitted he was initially convinced. The presentation is professional, the arguments are layered, it feels real. But then he started checking the facts, and this is where the theory begins to collapse. To understand why, we need the science. Nuclear weapons require fissile material, either uranium-235 or plutonium-239. Both must be produced at industrial scale. The German filmmakers claimed their bombs used only hundreds of grams of plutonium. The actual critical mass is 5 to 10 kilograms. That is a gap no theory can bridge. A nuclear reactor needs moderators to slow neutrons and sustain a chain reaction. Two options existed, pure graphite or heavy water. Germany failed at both. In 1941, physicist Walter Borth measured impure graphite and concluded it was unsuitable. Germany abandoned graphite research entirely, while other nations used it successfully for decades. The only remaining option was heavy water. The sole production facility in the world was in occupied Norway. British commandos and bombers made sure it stayed crippled. No usable graphite, not enough heavy water. Without moderators, you cannot build a reactor. Without a reactor, you cannot produce plutonium. Now compare this to what America actually did. The Manhattan Project cost $2 billion in 1940s money and employed over 125,000 people across multiple states. Oak Ridge, Tennessee alone was a secret city of 75,000 people built specifically for uranium enrichment. Germany allegedly did the same, in hidden tunnels with no budget. But here is something the debunkers rarely mention. There are contradictions in the official story too, and this is what makes the theory seductive. Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister, wrote that the Führer found nuclear physics beyond his comprehension. He mentioned atomic research only once in 2,200 documented conversations. Speer claims that by autumn 1942, Germany officially abandoned the bomb. Heisenberg told him it would take 3 to 4 years, too long for a war already turning against them. Instead, Speer redirected resources toward a nuclear-powered submarine reactor. Uranium would power engines, not warheads. This sounds reasonable, until you look at the numbers. In summer 1943, Speer claims he sent 1,200 tons of natural uranium to be used as cores for artillery shells. 1,200 tons gone to shells. But wait, the Americans only started using depleted uranium for shell cores in the 1960s. Did Speer invent this 20 years early, or was he covering something up? And here is the real contradiction. In autumn of that same year, 1943, Speer allocated 800,000 Reichsmarks to build a heavy water production plant with IG Farben. Heavy water has essentially one use: nuclear reactors. If you gave away all your uranium in summer, why build a heavy water plant in autumn? One of these statements must be false. This is exactly the kind of gap that conspiracy theories exploit, a real inconsistency in the historical records, wrapped in a conclusion that does not follow. From 1 ton of natural uranium, you can extract just 1 kilogram of weapons-grade plutonium. For one bomb, you need at minimum 5 kilograms. That requires thousands of tons of uranium and massive infrastructure. But here is where the German theory faces its most devastating problem: not the science, not the materials, the delivery system. Little boy weighed 4,400 kilograms. Fat man weighed 4,700. America spent years developing the B-29 Superfortress, specifically to carry them, a pressurized bomber with a 9-ton capacity and an 11-kilometer ceiling. The weapon and its carrier were designed together as one system: no bomb without a bomber, no warhead without a way to deliver it. This is basic military logic. Germany's closest attempt at a heavy bomber was the Messerschmitt 264, the so-called America bomber. It never left the prototype stage. Engines unreliable. Production never started. By 1944, Germany had stopped producing bombers entirely. The Luftwaffe put everything into fighters. If you are building a 5-ton atomic bomb, who carries it? Hitler did invest in delivery systems, the V-1 cruise missile and V-2 ballistic rocket. 25,000 V-1s and 6,000 V-2s were produced, but their warhead capacity was just 1 ton. And here is the fatal detail: V-2 accuracy. Only 50% of rockets landed within a 10-kilometer circle. A high-altitude bomber could hit within 1 kilometer. For a nuclear weapon, accuracy matters. If Germany truly had nuclear weapons, they would have built a carrier in parallel. No 5-ton bomb without a 5-ton delivery system. The absence of the carrier disproves a weapon. But the German filmmakers have another argument, one that sounds powerful. They say America never tested the Hiroshima bomb before dropping it, and that proves it was German. This is true. The Trinity test used the plutonium bomb, the same design as Nagasaki. But little boy, the uranium bomb dropped on Hiroshima, was never fully detonated before its first use. The filmmakers argue no military would risk dropping an untested weapon. What if it failed and the enemy recovered it? This sounds logical, but it is wrong. Little boy used a gun-type design, simplifying one uranium mass into another. The physics was so straightforward that subcritical laboratory tests were sufficient. No full detonation was needed. Scientists measured neutron behavior as uranium pieces approached critical mass without completing it. They understood the physics precisely. The math worked, the bomb would work. And even if it failed, the gun-type design was already considered obsolete. Plutonium implosion was the future. Giving the enemy a dead-end technology was an acceptable risk. Little boy was used exactly once in history and never again. No country ever built another gun-type bomb. It was a crude, wasteful design, but it was enough for Hiroshima. Now comes the final blow to the theory, and it is not about physics, chemistry, or engineering. It is about what happened to people. In April 1945, American forces captured 10 of Germany's top nuclear physicists. Among them, Werner Heisenberg, head of the German nuclear project and Nobel laureate, also captured Otto Hahn, the man who discovered uranium fission, the very foundation of all nuclear weapons. These were the most valuable minds in nuclear science. And what did America do with them? They briefly interrogated them, then handed all 10 over to the British. Think about that. If these men built the atomic bomb, giving them away would be the most irrational decision in military history. You do not hand your enemy's greatest weapon designers to an ally. Compare this to Wernher von Braun, the rocket engineer. America kept him permanently, built NASA around him, because his program was real. The British took the German physicists to a country estate called Farm Hall near Cambridge. They bugged every room. Every conversation was secretly recorded for months. They hoped that in private these men would reveal nuclear secrets they had withheld. Instead, the transcripts showed something far more revealing, genuine shock when they learned about Hiroshima. The only useful intelligence from months of recordings, Hitler had shifted all resources to rockets and conventional weapons. The nuclear project was starved of funding. Here is the final logic test. Britain received the alleged architects of the German bomb. Britain had world-class chemical industry. Britain had every piece of infrastructure needed. Yet Britain did not test its own bomb until 1952. If Germany had cracked nuclear weapons, Britain would have had the bomb by 1947 at the latest. The 7-year gap is the most powerful evidence that these scientists had nothing to give. After less than a year, the British released all 10 physicists back to West Germany. There was nothing left to extract. They returned to academic life. The German nuclear program was real. The science was pioneering. Otto Hahn's discovery of fission changed the world forever. But discovery is not the same as production. A documentary that shows hills and claims there are factories underneath is not evidence. A radar scan that vanishes is not proof. A theory that collapses under its own contradictions is not history. The real story is not a conspiracy. It is a nation that had the brains but not the resources, the science but not the will, the potential but not the time. And sometimes the most uncomfortable truth is the simplest one. They tried, they failed, and history for once was not rewritten